Imagine this. You are with a woman who seems to have everything a man could want. She is beautiful in the kind of effortless way that makes people stop and stare when she enters a room. She is confident, sharp, witty, and socially magnetic. Being around her feels exciting, almost unreal. So you do what you have always been told a good man should do. You show up consistently. You treat her with care. You make time for her, plan thoughtful dates, send sweet messages, offer reassurance, and do everything possible to make her feel valued. In your mind, this is how love is built. This is how trust is earned. This is how a woman should be treated if you genuinely care about her. But then something strange starts happening. Instead of getting closer, she begins to drift. Her energy changes. Her replies become colder. Her excitement becomes less natural. And what confuses most men is that the harder they try to prove how sincere, loyal, and devoted they are, the more distant she seems to become. That contradiction is what leaves so many men frustrated, because they cannot understand how doing everything right can still produce the wrong result. The uncomfortable belief at the heart of this philosophy is that attraction is not sustained by kindness alone. It is not sustained by loyalty alone, effort alone, or constant reassurance alone. According to this view, attraction has a psychological structure that is very different from comfort. A woman may appreciate the man who gives endlessly, who is always available, who makes her the center of his world. But appreciation and desire are not the same thing. The argument is that for attraction to remain alive, she must feel that the man has a certain value, presence, or gravity that stands above her in some meaningful way. She must feel that his attention is significant, not automatic. Not because he is cruel, distant, or abusive, but because his affection is not something she can take for granted without effort. In this way of thinking, attraction grows in the space where admiration, challenge, and uncertainty meet. The moment she feels that she has total ownership over his emotions, that she no longer has to earn his attention, that he will always be there no matter how little she gives back, some of that tension disappears. And once that tension disappears, the spark often begins to fade with it. This idea is often explained through evolution. For countless generations, women are said to have been shaped by the need to choose men who could offer security, strength, stability, and the best possible chance of survival for both mother and child. In ancient environments, choosing the wrong man could mean vulnerability, hardship, or death. Because of that, the female mind is often described as being highly sensitive to cues of weakness, instability, and low value, even in the modern world where life looks completely different on the surface. The argument is that although technology, society, and culture have changed, the deeper instincts remain. So when a man behaves in ways that signal emotional dependence, desperation, or a constant need for female approval, those traits are unconsciously read as lower value signals. On the other hand, when a man appears calm, self-contained, emotionally steady, and rooted in his own life, he gives off a very different impression. He appears like someone who has options, someone who is not defined by one woman's opinion of him, someone whose identity is not hanging on whether she approves of him. And in this framework, that difference in perception matters far more than most men realize. That is why outward success, by itself, is not enough. A man can have the money, the physique, the status, the car, the wardrobe, and all the visible markers that the world associates with value, yet still fail to create lasting attraction if his behavior constantly reveals insecurity underneath. If he seeks constant reassurance, overinvests too quickly, reacts emotionally to every shift in her mood, or subtly begs to be chosen, all the external signs of success lose their force. Meanwhile, another man with fewer obvious advantages may be seen as far more compelling simply because of the way he carries himself. He is relaxed under pressure. He does not rush to prove himself. He does not hand out validation endlessly. He is interested, but not overeager. He is warm, but not needy. He behaves like a man who knows his worth and does not need to advertise it. That is the core of perceived value. It is not just what you own or what you have achieved. It is how you behave in moments of uncertainty, how you handle rejection, how you respond when your ego is challenged, and whether your presence feels grounded or grasping. In this philosophy, attraction is not built only on traits. It is built on the emotional message your behavior sends. Uncertainty plays a major role in that emotional message. When a woman knows exactly where she stands from the very beginning, when she knows exactly how much a man likes her, how available he is, how quickly he will reply, how easily he can be reassured, and how predictable his behavior will always be, she no longer has to invest much mentally or emotionally. There is nothing left to wonder about, nothing left to discover, nothing left to earn. But when there is some mystery, some restraint, some sense that his attention is meaningful rather than automatic, her mind stays active. She thinks about him more. She notices his shifts in tone more. She wonders where she stands, and that emotional wondering keeps the connection alive in a way certainty often does not. Human beings in general place higher value on what feels scarce, selective, or not fully secured. In relationships, this often means that predictable affection can become emotionally invisible, while measured affection can feel far more powerful. The point here is not to become cold or manipulative. The point is that when attention is too freely given, it can lose its impact. But when attention comes from a place of standards and self-possession, it carries more weight and creates more emotional tension. This is also why so many behaviors in dating are framed as tests. A woman may suddenly become distant, mention another man, cancel plans, show a bit of attitude, or act harder to read than usual. In many cases, this is described not as a deliberate strategy, but as an instinctive way of measuring a man's emotional stability and his dependence on her approval. If he instantly chases, panics, over-explains, becomes jealous, or tries desperately to repair the mood, he reveals that he is more emotionally invested than she is. He tells her, without saying the words directly, that she has power over his emotional state. But if he remains calm, composed, and self-respecting, if he does not crumble at the first sign of uncertainty, he communicates strength. He communicates that he values himself enough not to lose his center over every emotional fluctuation. The deeper idea is that women are not only listening to what men say, they are constantly feeling out how men respond under pressure. They are watching whether a man's confidence is real or whether it collapses the moment her energy changes. In this view, self-respect is not just admirable, it is attractive because it signals emotional durability. From this perspective, attraction often fades when a man becomes too predictable, too available, and too eager to please. Many men think that being loving means constant accommodation, endless reassurance, and always putting the woman first. But in doing so, they slowly remove the very tension that keeps passion alive. A woman may genuinely appreciate kindness, consistency, and care, but appreciation is not always enough to sustain desire. Desire often depends on polarity, emotional contrast, and the feeling that the man has his own standards, his own pace, his own direction, and his own life beyond the relationship. The problem begins when a man unconsciously places the woman at the center of his identity, reshaping his time, his mood, his decisions, and his sense of self around keeping her happy. Once that happens, his presence can stop feeling powerful and start feeling overly available. Instead of admiration, he can create comfort without excitement. Instead of passion, he can create predictability. And in this framework, that is where many men lose the spark. Not because they cared too much, in a pure sense, but because they expressed that care in a way that communicated dependence rather than strength. The final lesson in this philosophy is that abundance, decisiveness, and frame control are what make a man deeply compelling over time. Abundance does not simply mean having many women. It means having a life, identity, and inner world rich enough that you do not cling to one person out of fear. Decisiveness means you can lead, choose, and move with clarity instead of always seeking permission or reassurance. Frame control means you maintain your emotional center, your perspective, and your self-respect even when tested. A man like this can treat a woman well without making her the source of his worth. He can care deeply without begging. He can invest genuinely without over-investing recklessly. He can be warm without becoming weak, and attentive without becoming desperate. That balance is what this philosophy sees as the foundation of lasting attraction. The core message, then, is simple, but difficult for many men to live by. Stop trying so hard to be chosen. Stop handing out your value too cheaply. And become the kind of man whose attention means something because it comes from strength, standards, and emotional self-possession. When a man reaches that place, his presence changes, and so does the way women respond to him.